I think we're moving Emily's items down, but for the first item, Lana is here for that one.
Okay, before we get to any of that, though, is there any public comment on items not on today's agenda? Okay. Seeing none. Flana, do you want to kick off this first item?
Yes, sounds good. So I have before you a request for approval and signature of a professional services agreement with C.H. Johnson Consulting. They are going to research, develop, and implement an operating pro forma analysis here at the fairgrounds of the existing facilities as well as some of the proposed facilities as phase 2 of redevelopment. And the financial impact is going to be $30,000. That is accounted for in the fairgrounds development budget. After phase 1 was underway, there was a study done, I think in 2019, that kind of got some community feedback on how phase 1 was going, plans for phase 2. And as part of that feedback, the community kind of chimed in and helped the fairgrounds kind of establish some new goals to set. A few of those being that we would like to become the public gathering space for Midtown Missoula, and that we want to expand programming so that we have more year-round programming and to draw more diverse interest, as well as having more kind of open space and availability for regional events. And so this pro forma is going to assist us to achieve these goals. The scope of work is very broad. I think we're going to get a lot out of it. They are going to do an operational review of current policies and pricing, a market analysis of current and potential events to draw to the fairgrounds. They're going to do a regional and comparable facilities study and do a design review for some of the phase 2, sorry about that. Some of the phase 2 proposed new buildings, such as the new arena and grandstands and the new livestock and equestrian pavilion. I'm missing a few things. Oh, they're also going to identify some potential new programming for us at the fairgrounds. And then in their final recommendation and implementation, they're going to offer demand and operating projections for a 10-year period.
Is this
That's great. Super good.
Juanita?
does this also include, I mean, how does the programming at the Exploration Center, Butterfly House, is this kind of attached to that too, or how does that, are they looking at that as well?
So it's my understanding that the Butterfly House, they're going to do their own programming, but we are hoping that they will look at how can we tie in. So for example, if somebody ends up having a wedding ceremony at the Butterfly House, but then maybe they come and they have the reception at the commercial building. So okay, we are going to look at how we can integrate some of this programming, yes.
Any other questions?
No, thanks, Flana.
Yeah. How about a motion?
I would move that the board approve the PSA.
Second.
Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Flana.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to hold items 2 and 3 until Emily shows up, unless she's here already, and unbeknownst to me, does not look like it. So let's go to item number 4. Kyla, we have some appointments to the Tax Appeal Board.
Yes, so 3 terms expire at the end of March, and there was no new applicants. The 3 current members, May Haseman, Dale Jackson, and David Jackson, all submitted their letters for reappointment. They're all eligible for reappointment. So the motion is just to reappoint them to new 3-year terms, which would end March 31st of 2024.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed that, have we met with the tax appeal board?
I was thinking the same thing, Juan. I feel like I don't have a lot of experience with the tax appeal board.
It's a hardworking board, actually.
Wow.
We could probably have the chair come in and chat with us at some point.
That would be great. At least
Yeah.
information for us. I feel like I'm a bit out of touch on this one.
I'm going to motion to reappoint the
Yeah.
hardworking 3 board members.
And way to go, continuing to engage in public service on the part of these 3 folks. So yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
So Kyla, can you, or how's this work? Dave,
Chris.
do you ask the chair
Chris,
Yeah, we can-
something you could work on?
Yeah, we can reach out to Michael Nave.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
or? Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next slate of appointments. This is to reappoint Wendy Green to a new 3-year term on the Tela Lake Cemetery District Board. Kyla?
Yes, so Wendy's term expires April 30th. She submitted her letter for letter of interest. She's eligible for reappointment, and we had no new applicants. So her term would be through April 30th, 2024.
Okay. Thank
Great. Well, I would move that we reappoint Wendy Green.
Man, this last year, Sea Lake Cemetery District Board is lots of action. So
Yeah.
second.
Unusual in a cemetery.
Yes. Okay. All. Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
And last but not least, a request to appoint Jane Kelly to fill the remainder of a vacant alternate term on the Fair Event Committee.
Yes, so we have one vacancy for the alternate term that Tom Aldrich resigned from. We had one new applicant, Jane Kelly, to fill the remainder of the vacant term, which is through September 30th, 2021.
Great. And I motion to appoint Jane Kelly to fill the remainder of Aldrich's term.
I'll second that.
And I'm delighted that we're able to find a place to actually plug Jane into. She's got a lot of energy and a lot of willingness to give back to the community. So any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Yep.
Thanks, Kyla.
Thank you.
And to buy a little bit more time for Emily's arrival, and we're moving through this at such a breakneck pace that we might just have to go out in front of her here. But in any event, we've got.
You know, if somebody's reached out to Emily, sent her a text or anything.
Yes, I just knocked on her door.
Oh, thank you, Glenn.
And I just texted her.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
So let's talk about our piece of correspondence. Today before us is our letter to the Transportation Commission requesting a name change to the, it should be Higgins Avenue Bridge to be the Bear Tracks Bridge. And this was a recommendation, as far as the name itself goes, a recommendation coming out of the Salish Pend Oreille and Salish Pend Oreille Culture Committee and the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribes Tribal Council. And the meeting of the Transportation Commission that this will be heard at is in April. Next week's the deadline to get materials before them for that April meeting. And as luck would have it, the city of Missoula has agreed to be a co-signer of this letter. So this will be a request coming from both the city and the county. We'll submit this along with a support letter from the tribal council and some background information. And with any luck, this will sail through to approval in the month of April before the commission.
Hey, Dave, what's the correct spelling of Bear Tracks? Is it 2 words, 1 word? I'm not.
It is
Bear.
one word,
Okay.
Bear Tracks, capital
Thank
B, small t.
And Dave, do you want to talk for a few moments about the why those words are this name? That this isn't about grizzly tracks as kind of a pro bear thing, but it actually has some familial lineage that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage folks to take a look at our letter and any of the materials from the CSKT Tribal Council and the background information from the Culture Committee, which really fleshes out the nuances of all of this. But basically, for folks who are not aware, in 1891, there was a forced removal by the U.S. Army of of the Bitterroot Salish out of the Bitterroot Valley up to the Flathead Reservation. And during that event, there were several bands of Salish, and at least one of them either crossed over the rickety earlier version of the Higgins Avenue Bridge or forded the Clark Fork River adjacent to the Higgins Avenue Bridge in downtown Missoula. One of that particular band was led by a sub-chief whose familial name was, actually, I think it may have been the name of his wife's family was Bear Tracks, and hence, at the recommendation of the tribal council, just based on the importance of the Bear Tracks family name in tribal heritage and history, and also recognizing that this particular sub-chief with a connection to this family name was the one who led this band on their, which by many respects is seen as our very own Trail of Tears here in Western Montana, a shameful event that we would be remiss not to remember. Because of those reasons, Bear Tracks' name was chosen. You're right, Josh, that it is not an indication of us taking a position on the animal species itself, grizzly bear. But
do live in, what is it, an Ursus philiac society here, where we put.
Yeah, as much as we love charismatic megafauna, that is not the reason why the name is being chosen. But anyway, and I guess the other parallel backstory here is that, as I've said many times, we've got names of presidents, names of tree species, names of old white guys who were the city fathers of this community, but precious little recognition by way of place names embossed on the places that are so familiar to us today of the tribal heritage that runs so deep and long here in the Missoula Valley.
I just want to add to this little bit, and thanks for that great explanation. I think that's super important. Without that explanation, Dave, I feel like the significance could possibly be missed, that this is just another appreciation of bears. So I just wanted to point out how important these names are, and this isn't just a word we're attaching to an object, but naming of these public objects, public facilities, are an act of public education. And this isn't a rewriting of history. This is an adding to our history and making it more complete, that this place isn't only because of the great works of the Misters Higgins and Warden, etc., but of the people who lived here for millennia, time immemorial, before those folks got here. And we absorb that story in part because we live in it, and having things as iconic as this bridge bear that name will help us fill in the gaps in our history.
Yeah, and a couple other points, and that's spot on, Josh. One is that there have been myriad examples of well-meaning folks taking some action to try to right a past wrong or pay homage to or recognize someone, and do so in a way that's completely cut loose from consultation with the very people who you're trying to honor, and thankfully in this case that was not what played out. The tribes have been right with us from the very start of this. They played an active role, and in fact they are the ones who put significant time and energy into thinking through if a name was to be attached to this piece of infrastructure, this newly rededicated infrastructure, what ought it to be. So I'm super thankful for that. Also, just to be clear, and in contrast to those who've maybe leveled the accusation that yet again this is part of the so-called cancel culture, which is a term that has arisen in the recent past. Absolutely not. This bridge bears no name right now. It so happens to be the piece of infrastructure over which Higgins Avenue crosses, and Higgins Avenue will continue to cross the Bear Tracks Bridge into the future. So it's assigning a long overdue name to a piece of infrastructure that is currently unnamed.
Yeah, that's an important clarification, Dave. And yeah. Oh, and Emily is here.
Okay, so this letter will be coming around via DocuSign today, presumably. It will then be going to the City Council to be taken up under new business on Monday night. And hopefully on Tuesday of next week, Wednesday at the absolute latest, we'll be shipping all of this stuff to the Transportation Commission for consideration in the month of April. So welcome, Emily Brock, and we are going to loop back to items 2 and 3 on the agenda, if you'd like to describe these for us.
Sure. So this is continuing our work managing some of the redevelopment of the fairgrounds in-house. The first contract is with 4G's Plumbing and Heating, and is for plumbing and ductwork in Building 12, which is the fair office, so that we can build ADA restroom facilities. The work includes removing existing fixtures and piping, doing some saw cutting of concrete, removing and replacing the concrete, obviously, putting in some PVC, waste piping and vent piping, copper piping fixtures and exhaust fans and ductwork. This did go out to bid. 4G's was $500 higher than the other bids, but we went with them considering that it's $500 out of $17,000 because they're so familiar and they did the historic plaza project for us, and which is what ties into this. And so that's the first one. And then the second one is part of the same project, which is the Building 12. And let me pull that up. Pull up the RCA for that. And this is with Burleyman Creations in the amount of $26,063.83. And this is really the framing work associated with it. So the drywall for the bathrooms, and then the demolition and electrical, hanging doors, installing hardware, trim, and painting. The electrical, actually, we will probably work with PCI on, but we just left it in here in case, we kind of like to always collect bids on electrical because we feel sometimes like PCI has a little bit of a monopoly on county projects, so we wanted to get a quote on that. And then this also includes, we're going to build a secure money room that will have cameras in it eventually for the fair. And so, and maybe, other events as we build up other events. So we sent out 4 bids for this, and this was the only one that came in.
Okay.
So those are the 2 items.
Our own Fort Knox at the fairgrounds. Any questions for either of these items? We could just vote on these together.
I move we do items 2 and 3.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Thanks for all the good work, Emily. It's wonderful to see the fairgrounds continue to unfold.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's awesome. And doing it in-house probably saves us a couple. Yeah, honestly, we've just trimmed down so much by about $300,000. So
Well done,
I
Emily.
love that. Yeah, I'm really hoping we can apply a similar ethic to parts of the exploration gardens area.
Very good.
thank you.
All right. Thanks, Emily. Okay, let's jump ahead to the item on the agenda that's a standing item this time of year, and that is the legislative session.
Oh, actually, yeah, never mind.
Oh, Wendy, did you have something? I didn't want to.
It was super minor, but the wording on the agenda says that we're changing the name of Higgins Avenue Bridge. And so is that?
That's good catch, Juan. That's
if we
really,
can just
I
I think
think
I have a name.
I think it probably should
Name.
read to name the Higgins Avenue Bridge.
Yeah, doesn't have a name right now.
Or
Yes.
however you want to be creative with that, Annie.
I'll note that and change it on the agenda.
Thank you.
The unnamed, yeah, cross-water conveyance.
Crosswater conveyance. There you
Water
go.
conveyance.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
nothing to
Chris.
report on the legislature today. As you know, they're out on transmittal break. We had a good wrap-up call for the first half of the session with Rebecca Myers, our lobbyist, yesterday afternoon, just to kind of go over where we are on various bills and get ready for that second session. She is their second section of the session. Too many S's in a row for me to handle there. So she is taking a much needed break and unplugged for the next couple of days. So we just wanted to touch base with her. Continue to, look towards the future. Of course, as you all know, the second half of the session will be the most challenging. That's the part where House Bill 2, which is the state budget, really comes together. And that's really where we start talking about funding that passes through to local government, both in the return of money that is collected on behalf of local governments, called the entitlement share, worst name ever,
Yeah.
as well as grants and those things. Some good news is they headed out or gavelled out from the first half of the session is that at least in the Health and Human Services budget, they did add it back in most of the money that was originally cut from the baseline, about $1 billion. So it was a lot of money that was cut. So that was at least good news as we head into the second half, that the starting number has come up significantly, but still a lot of work to do as we head into the second session. They will gavel back into session on Monday, but there won't really be any hearings until Tuesday of next week. So we will have more items as we head into next week's admin as things start to get scheduled over the weekend. So,
Chris, and this is going to demonstrate my ignorance here, but maybe you could offer a quick little state civics lesson. So that I've heard while listening to the news, the governor is signing this into law, and I thought, well, how can they do that before transmittal? Don't each house, doesn't each body, the Senate and the House, have to vote, give it the thumbs up before it goes to the governor's desk? How does that work?
yes, you are quite correct. Bills have to move between both houses and be voted on by both houses. Transmittal is just the hard deadline by which a bill must move from one house to the other, unless it is revenue. If revenue bills actually have an additional 3 weeks, they go till April 1st in the state of Montana. But in this case, the bills can move much earlier than the transmittal break and be acted on by both houses. So we saw that, for example, with House Bill 102, was the first piece of legislation passed by the House, first piece of legislation passed by the Senate. Once it was passed by both, went to the governor's desk.
Well, thank you. I wasn't aware that. I wasn't aware that it could happen before transmittal. I just knew that it had to happen by transmittal.
Yeah, so it can all happen before transmittal. Yeah, so
Wow.
it is. It's not unusual for, especially at the start of a governor's term, for that to happen with a few bills that are deemed like the governor's priority bills, especially when you have the governor's party in control of both houses.
What were the bills that were done already?
So the first one was the one related to firearms, House Bill 102. The second bills were the ones related to liability protection for businesses that do their best to comply with local health orders. Those were the two that kind of passed. There have been a few others related to his tax policy that we've seen move pretty quickly, again lowering the top tax rate and those kinds of things. I don't know if they've officially been signed by the governor yet, but they in essence moved between the houses very quickly.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, well, very good. More to come on the legislature. Going back just a second to correspondence, we received yesterday a letter from Jake Krylik related to the Flathead Lolo Bitterroot Citizen Task Force and their litigation related to Soldier Butler. Thoughts on this? I guess my inclination would be this is an active litigation. It seems somewhat imprudent for us to meet with folks about this while this is ongoing, but I would be open to other thoughts here.
So, Dave, I saw that came through, but I have not yet been able to read that note. Would you mind doing a bit of a recap?
Well, the recap, I guess, is basically Jake wants to meet with the the Board of County Commissioners and push us to take a public stance on the project. Now, we've already commented on the project, and we're not party to the lawsuit, but clearly they're wanting us to take a more public stand, even in the midst of litigation. But since it's under litigation, and this is just for folks who might not be aware, it's a large fuels treatment project out in forest management project out in the 9 Mile area. There was some concern earlier on regarding grizzly bear connectivity and habitat and how the proposed project might adversely impact that, and we did weigh in, and I'm not sure if Jake or others with this particular task force are aware that we did send a letter to the Forest Service on that.
What did we say to them? I don't remember.
Well, and I would have to, it's been a while, we'd have to dredge up the letter, and I don't know if there's anyone from CAPS on the line here today or not. But I think it was just basically, if I'm not mistaken, articulating concerns that it wasn't saying thumbs up or thumbs down to the project, but more articulating concerns about whatever happens, it ought to take into account grizzly bear habitat and connectivity. And that was prior to the litigation ensuing.
And I thought wasn't there a response, or like that the Forest Service was changing some of
I don't know about
some of their strategies regarding roads, and that they weren't, some roads weren't necessary, and so I thought that they were drafting their plan.
Well, I don't know, and it's debatable whether what they are proposing is truly adequate or not, but to the extent it's being hashed out in court right now, it's not like us weighing in will make any difference during the court proceedings unless we somehow are an intervener or some.
Okay. So we'll
I don't know. Well, I guess that's the open question, is what all you would want to do in this regard.
Yeah.
I don't feel I don't feel strongly.
Brian West,
Yeah.
What are your thoughts as far as it doesn't seem particularly productive for us to weigh in on a matter that is currently being hashed out in the court system?
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad sentiment, Dave. We're not a participant. We're not a litigant. There's no need to, I guess, try and put a thumb on the scale one way or the other.
And I guess even furthermore, my inclination would be to not meet with the plaintiffs in this case. Thoughts there?
I think that's appropriate, Dave.
Okay.
So how do we respond to them?
So I just want to game this out a little bit. And so if we were to meet with them, what would the negative be on that? I feel pretty committed, as you guys are pointing out, that we shouldn't be taking a side in this. This isn't our fight. So if we're clear about that, what negative would come from hearing what these people have to say?
Well, I mean, I can't say that there's a negative from listening, but I mean, what are you going to be achieving by just listening, not being able to provide a response, and what's your time worth?
I mean, it's kind of it'd be a learning opportunity and sort of a gesture of respect too. And I've no desire to alienate these folks. Even if I do believe the right thing for us to do is not to be involved. So there's a modest political gain and a modest educational gain.
My suggestion would be is if you want to entertain a meeting, then you make it clear at the outset and before setting that meeting that you have no intent of taking action and taking a position afterwards. And that way, nobody's being led astray. Nobody's being felt like they're, wasting their time, so to speak.
Let me just read what the request is, since not everyone has the letter in front of you. So Jake writes, we were hoping to meet with you sometime during this month about the specific legal issues we're raising relative to this litigation, and discuss the deleterious effects from ground disturbing activities and the sediment that will be generated from road construction and logging. All presumably, those are items that are also laid out in their complaint. So that's their request to meet with us. Later on, they say this is with some additional verbiage in there. This is why we are pressing the Missoula County Commissioners to take a public stance against the project and trust you understand that our issues are focused on adverse resources impacts from new road construction in the area that already has high road densities and lots of old clear cuts. So it's a twofold request, one to meet with us, one for us to take a public stance. We could presumably meet with them without taking and let them know in advance that we are not going to be taking any public stance while this is in litigation.
That would be my inclination, just because it's kind of rotten, just to be clear, to say to somebody, no, we're not even going to talk to you. And these are people that share our community. They're attempting to do something they feel like is in the best interest of all, in terms of good politics, good relations, and our own education. I don't have any problem chatting with them as long as we're clear from the outset that this is ongoing lawsuit and we're not going to get involved. And it may be when they hear that, they'll say thanks, but no thanks. And that'll be the end of it. And if they say, oh, we'd love to chat with you, that's okay too. So.
Okay, well, if that's the sentiment, I will, I can respond back to Jake and just let him know we have to meet with him under those conditions that, just as you have articulated, Josh.
And
great.
Ronnie, you're okay with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Chris?
Well, just one quick thing. We will see if we can dig up the correspondence also and recirculate to the commissioners, just so you have that from the information already sent.
And in fact, Chris, if someone could dig that up today, I can then attach that to my letter to Jake in case they did not see that previously.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll reach out to CAPS and see if they have a quick copy of it. I can also look in our correspondence log.
Thank you.
I think it's
speaking
in the
of
last
letter, I'm still hung up on the Bear Tracks letter. The first sentence in the letter uses the word rename, so we want to fix that.
Well, I think that ship has sailed, and this has been vetted with the tribes, and so I think
Great.
it's fine. Yeah. Anything else today? It sounds like Adrian's not with us for COVID, but we'll get a briefing during the MAC call later and can report back to the commission on that. Communication needs. Anything from our comms staff? Okay. Well, seeing none, thanks everyone, and we will see you at next week at the latest, I guess. Maybe later this afternoon. We'll see.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks.
Everybody.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks.